Okay, so we took a belt sander and we tightened this up. Now, a belt sander does a very good job of cutting off a small amount without chipping up the face. The side splash will cover up any variations that we have from that. Now, from here, we want to make sure that we get our measurements for where our center goes. This is determined by our drain. Now, the drain underneath here was already glued prior, and as it's hard glued, there's no adjustment to it, so we want to make sure we have very good measurements to where that drain is. We measure from the side and from the back, and you make sure you deduct for the thickness of the cabinet. Then you transfer that measurement to the countertop itself, and that's your center. What you're going to determine from there is the sink is a one-hole sink, so the side to side is just measure it and then split the measurement, and that's your center, because the center of the drain here is going to be the center of the whole sink. So that's going to line up perfectly. Where you're going to measure to is to this bracket here. This slot accepts the bracket that actually holds the sink down. We don't have those brackets, but this slot is welded to the sink, and it does sit inside of the actual hole that we're going to cut. So we're going to take those measurements and transfer that. Now the faucet holes change the center point of the sink, so we want to make sure that we deduct for that from the front to the back. Once we determined all of those measurements and we made our deductions, we transferred that to the countertop. Now we took an oscillating tool and we pre-scored the countertop with the oscillating tool. Then we took a skill saw and we made these straight cuts with that. We made sure that we kept our skill saw blade on the inside of those measurements. And then you can see where it chipped the edge here on the inside. That's the scrap piece from the middle, and made some pretty decent chips on that. That's fine. We have a nice straight cut where we're going to save it. You want to make sure that you do this because those chips can actually show after you get the sink in. They can be that large. So you can see here right in the corner, we haven't cut yet with any deeper. We just scored it with the oscillating tool. Then the straight cuts were cut with the skill saw. Here we've removed the center where the sink goes, and you can see the corners of the cut are not square. It would be much easier to cut this square with a skill saw, but we want to make sure that we make a radius here in the corners, because this is a common mistake that people will make. They'll make this cut square, and then the sink corners on a metal sink are not square, they are round. And you will see that cut out here at the point. It will translate out to a small little triangle where you can see the corner of your square cut. You want to make sure that that's rounded so that you don't see that. Very important point. Now we're going to dry fit the sink here. This has no caulk underneath it. We're just doing our initial dry fit, and it is very snug. I'm not sure at this point if I'm going to have to take some off, but I'm going to give it a little bit of a push here, and boom. Perfect fit, nice and tight. Now this is very important. We want to make sure this is tight because there's no brackets to hold this down. Here we have the finished product. We've used a silicone underneath the sink to hold it in place because the brackets were lost in the original installation. The side splash, we used a construction adhesive to hold that on. That is going to look really great. Now the side splash here, we use a construction adhesive behind it to hold it in place. Then we use a silicone caulk against the countertop to seal it. Then we use a painter's caulk to finish it out against the wall. We use a painter's caulk here so that they can, in the future, paint this to be perfect. The wall was damaged slightly during the original installation, but I think it looks great, and they are very pleased. Before and after. Thanks for watching.